Hi, Jim.
Hi, Tanya. What's up? What are we doing here today? What? Oh, wait, I'm supposed to say, hey, everybody, what's up? Hey, everybody,
Let's
what's
do
up?
this again.
Let's do this again. Hey, got my chihuahua. Here we go. Hey, everybody, what's up? Jim Cirile and Tanya Klein and Cha here from Coverage Inc., the leader in screenplay analysis, development, and editing services for over 20 years. Say hi, Cha.
Well, hi, Cha-Cha.
Hi, Cha.
He's a
Tanya,
cute pie.
how you doing today, Cha? What? I mean, how you doing?
What now?
How you doing today, Tanya?
I'm doing well. How about yourself, Jim?
What are we talking about today? I'm a little slappy today.
All right, today we are talking about lessons from Get Rep Now 2025. Now, in
Okay.
case you don't know what Get Rep Now is,
Yeah.
Get Rep Now is something we do every year with Coverage Inc. in a prescribed time period, usually about 3, 4 months. Every script that comes into coverage and gets a consider is automatically elevated to our manager panel.
Right.
And then the managers read the log lines, read the script, and decide who they want to talk to and if they can do something with the material. So every year, I think, average is about what, 10 scripts.
10 to
That
15.
usually,
Yeah, 10 to
yeah, that we
15.
usually average. And that we send to our manager panel. And we just got through with Get Rep Now 2025, and the list has gone out to the managers, and they are reading now. So we figured we're going to do a video about lessons from Get Rep Now 2025. In other words, what is the feedback we're getting from the managers when it
Right.
comes to what they're looking for, what they're responding to, what they're not responding to.
Yeah, well, there's a couple of lessons here. The first thing I think we need to note is, to no one's surprise, um, one of the horror scripts that we all knew was going to get picked up got picked up. It's called Prowl. It's written by a very talented writer called Eric, named Eric Leifson. The script got picked up by Jake Wagner from Alibi LA, and it is out to the town right now. I mean, we literally could get an email or a call, I hope so, like today or tomorrow, saying that something's happened with the script, something good. So we all knew this was going to happen. How did we know that this was going to happen with this particular script? Well, number one, it's genre. Okay. Number two, it's contemporary. Number three, relatively small cast. Number four, very well written. Of course, that goes along with it. Number five, it's an animal kind of stalking suspense thriller that tends to play well. These movies tend to always find an audience. And number six, it has a bit of an environmental theme to it, which is very contemporary. So we kind of knew that one was going to, um, you know, clang some bells for our industry reps. And Jake Wagner, as he always does, swooped in, first person to read, grabbed up Eric's script 2 days after we sent it to him, while I was still getting responses from the other managers of what, hey, I'd like to read all of these, or, can I not read this script or whatever? And I'm like, yeah, sorry, this one's already gone. So, early bird gets the worm and all of that stuff. So I think that's the first takeaway is, the one that we knew was going to be successful was successful. Now, how did we know that it was successful? For those specific reasons that I just gave.
Well, which they
Just gave.
basically boil down to marketability.
Yep.
It can be done on a budget.
Yeah.
Similar scripts or films have done well in the past. For example, we recently had Don't Breathe. That's been a couple of years ago.
Yep.
And you have also, you know what the production companies are that are very specifically are in that very specific space that you can approach. So that there's a lot of there's and of course again the writing is good and there's a theme there that people will respond to, but it's doable, it's marketable, there is a path to profitability.
And let's not forget genre. Horror is sort of its own thing. Horror movies are generally much cheaper to make than any other studio movie. A studio movie, if the average budget is, 8 or 9 figures, the average budget for a horror movie is $8 or $9. Okay. So, producers at all levels tend to like horror movies. They can be done on the indie side. This one does take place in South America in the jungle, so I mean, you're not going to shoot it in Burbank. You're not going to be able to shoot this in Georgia. You are going to need to shoot this somewhere tropical. Oh, bummer, we're going to have to go to Hawaii to shoot this movie. That's just terrible. But the point is, horror will always, and horror is an evergreen. Horror will always be welcome by the industry at multiple different levels and generally not star dependent, which is good as well. So you don't necessarily need, to put a big piece of talent on there to sell the thing. All reasons why Jake pounced and took the script out to the town, naked spec, crossing fingers that somebody buys it.
Yeah, and let's quickly explain what a naked spec is so we don't confuse people. So a naked spec is it's just the script. There are no attachments. Yeah, no, not that. There are no attachments, meaning they haven't put a package together consisting of the director and a couple of names in the cast.
Right. Yeah, generally, a lot of projects, most of them, the vast majority, in fact, are packaged. The ones that sell, pretty much anything that's sold over the last 5 years has been a package. I think there's been one or two that were naked specs. Back in the day, in the 90s and the double aughts, where, we had an actual spec market and stuff was selling all over the place. A naked spec was fine. If it was a big idea, a high concept, and manager or agent would roll the dice on it, send it out to the town, and potentially just sell the script. And that's how we heard about all those $1 million spec sales back in the day. Those were mostly naked specs, which is insane when you think about it nowadays, because now you've got to spend like a year or two for most projects, waiting to hear back from actors, big name actors or directors to build the package because the studio doesn't want to do that shit anymore. They want you to do that before you even cross their threshold, which is insane, but that's how it is now.
Yeah. So, all right, what other lessons have we learned from Get Rep Now 2025? In other words, Jim, what other feedback have we gotten?
So, okay, I believe it was 12 scripts at the end of the day. They were on our list, 11 considers and one honorable mention. And they are a panoply of different genres. For Get Rep Now, marketability is not one of the metrics we use to judge a script. So, if a script happens to be deemed marketable, it will probably get read more by scripts that aren't deemed marketable. But we had a pretty wide pardon me, we had pretty wide variety. We had period drama. We had one of the horror movies took place in the 1600s. We had, so we had an animation spec. We had
It, yeah.
two animated pilots, right? Animated feature spec and two animated pilots. We had two dramatic pilots. What else did we have? We had a thriller slash comedy that was sort of like Hyacinth-esque
Mhm.
in tone. And what else did we have?
Yeah,
You know,
we had period, we had crime drama.
yeah, yeah,
So we had
yeah, crime drama,
a
right,
huge, yeah, yeah, we had a huge
right.
variety pack.
So all over the map, and to no surprise, the ones that got the most reads so far, the ones the managers were most excited to read, are the three horrors. Or two of the three horrors. One of the horrors, like I said, took place in the 1600s. They're not as excited to read that one because it's period. So, Tanya, talk a little bit about the difficulty of period
Yeah. Okay. So,
nowadays.
and we actually had a similar problem, I think last year, the year before, where we also had a period horror. And it
Yeah.
was not an expensive period horror even.
No.
It was one cabin that most of this, so you didn't even have, a lot of, okay, you had some period clothing, but that was about it. But here's the thing about period. As soon as period enters into it, producers, managers, everyone gets scared.
Yeah, their hackles rise.
The reason they get scared is, well, the budget will always be just a tad bit higher. I mean, depending on how it's done, it might just really be a tad bit higher, like the one horror I just mentioned, which was, okay, you'd have to deal with period clothing and oh, there was a horse and carriage in it. But also, so with period, you have period clothing, period dress, period sets,
Yeah.
period anything. So again, this makes the budget grow. But also, you have an audience in general who is not necessarily into period anything. As soon as
Right.
period comes, is it really as marketable? And the answer is no, it's not as marketable anymore because as soon as you go period, the audience goes,
Yeah, we are so exactly this. So it's partly budget, yeah, and a lot of that is just based on mindset because there are ways to do period more cheaply. A Western doesn't necessarily cost a ton more than any other kind of movie, provided you have access to, Western a town set that you can rent. And these exist as standing sets here in California. Just by way of example. But yeah, no, I mean, we're in the TikTok era. We're in the social media era. We're in the verticals era. We're in the era where people consume their media on a phone and anything old timey, anything historical, they're just not that into it anymore. I mean, this is how the industry perceives it anyway. Obviously, there's going to be exceptions. Um, you know, name creators can still push forward projects that are period TV shows. There's always period shows on TV, a lot of great ones every year. Those are put forward, those are created by known creators who have earned the right to do that and, sell their vision to, AMC or whatever, Apple Plus or whatever it is.
yeah.
But for spec scripts or emerging writers, nah, it's hard.
Yeah, so to make a long story short, if you want to maximize your chances, maybe stay away from period.
Yeah, which is rough because a lot of people, that's their happy place. They love writing period stories. And look, there's a lot of great period stories to tell. Are we telling you not to write them? Of course not. But, you do have to be aware of, the industry's, tastes and what they're looking for, what they're not looking for, and proceed accordingly. You
Yes.
know,
And
there's way
another thing you can look at is your period story that you are so passionate about. Have you thought about writing it as a novel? Because
right.
that way you also create your own IP.
Lots of times we see period scripts where, with just a little bit of adjustment, they could take place in a contemporary setting.
Yeah.
Now, you're going to need to rethink some of the elements and figure out how to get the cell phones in there and stuff like that. But the story itself, lots of times, in fact, there's a lot of period stories that speak to us because they're still relevant to things that are going on now, issues, whatever that may be, environmentalism, racism, blah, 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 where, that story could work. You might need to set it perhaps in a different place than where you had originally wanted to set it, but there are ways to do it. So think about stuff like that. But anyway, back to Get Rep Now. So basically, folks, the ultimate goal of Get Rep Now is to wait for it, get rep now. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get these people signed. And then from there, hopefully, the manager will then, guide this person's career and help develop new and more exciting material with them, or maybe send out the one that they read as a spec, right? So in this particular case, the ones that are going to get the most attention are always going to be the ones that the managers feel that either this script can sell or this person's style and tastes and voice are something that perhaps on another project could sell, right? So, and once again, this year, we see that playing out. We see all the scripts, not just the horrors, but the ones that are getting requested are the ones that seem to have something about them that, might provide a marketable hook down the line.
So what are they looking for? They're looking at very, very strong writing chops. They're looking at people who are prolific and have more than just this one script. In fact, they have more scripts that are just as polished, and they have a whole sheet of ideas that they can talk with the manager about of what they want to write next. They want voice. They want something that they can say, here, look at this person because that voice, oh my God, that would fit your project so well. So what they want is writing chops. What they want is people who are engaged, who are driving their career, who are writing all the time.
Yeah, yeah. And so that sort of brings us to the number one way that people shoot themselves in the foot every year with Get Rep Now. This has happened time and time again where someone gets the Zoom or gets the in-person meeting. Excuse me, gets the in-person meeting with the manager. And the first question that the manager asks is,
So, what else have you got?
exactly. And if the answer is nothing, or well, I've got a couple of ideas, but they're not really fully formed or something like that, they're not going to think that you're a professional. They're expecting someone to come in as an idea machine. Here's my pitches. Here's my list of pitches. Take a look at these. See if any of these you spark to. They're looking for someone who is going to create within a certain path so that that where everything is similar-ish, even if the only thing that's similar is the voice necessarily, but generally they're looking to pigeonhole you so that they can sell you as a certain thing. The horror guy, the rom-com girl, or the horror girl, or the rom-com guy, whatever it is. That's what they want to see. If you've written four different scripts and each one is a different genre, it doesn't show diversity, it shows lack of understanding of how the business works. You need to present to them as somebody who can sell. All right. But anyway, the way people shoot themselves in the foot is either they don't have other ideas, or they send along another script as a writing sample, and that writing sample is not as polished as the one that got them in the door in the first place, because one generally doesn't do it. Sometimes it does, like with Jake Wagner, where he sees something that's just, yes, I can sell this right now. Let's go. But other times it's about a career. How can I monetize this person's career? How can I make my 10% commission, not just off one script, but for the next 5 years of everything that they write? And if what you send them as a follow-up script shows that is not at the same level as the first one, then they're going to go, I'll read the next one after that, maybe. Come back to me in a year. Or they'll just say pass.
Yeah, absolutely. But also one thing, because many times people also shoot themselves in the foot because they think they want my script now, so I have to send the script right now, even though it's a first draft. Do not do that. Do not do that. Do not ever do that. The door
Yeah.
is open. That's great. Now don't close it.
Take the time to get it right. One other sort of takeaway, which sort of surprised me from this year's Get Rep Now, is the YA script didn't didn't get a lot of attention. And Tanya, you've seen on
Yeah.
the book side
Yeah, on
YA.
the book side, like for example, on the book side, YA is the big thing. Everyone, I mean, with YA, it's so much easier to get anywhere on the book side with YA because every agent will be, or every agency at least, even if it's not every agent at every agency, will be looking for YA on the book side. However, on the movie side, not so much.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I can think is, because they do make these movies that target the YA audience, but they all seem to be adapted from the hit YA books.
Yeah.
So maybe as spec scripts, they just see there's no path to selling these without the IP. It may also have to do with casting. If the heroine or hero is 14 or something like that, there's no movie stars that are 14. I
Yeah,
mean, you
exactly. Yeah,
maybe
that's where, yeah, I mean, absolutely. Look, that is where IP comes from. If there is name recognition, because every kid has read whatever, the Hunger Games, it will be a movie. Yay. But also specifically with coming of age, because if you notice, most of the YA adaptations, like the Hunger Games, like the Divergent series, they're all fantasy and they're actiony. So, in other words, more fitting for movie interpretation.
yeah, yeah, and
Whereas straight YA, when it comes to really coming of age, like a character arc where a kid learns something and is better for it, uh, there are a lot fewer in the realm of movies, a lot fewer and far in between. And so one of the big differences also with movie YA coming of age and book YA coming of age is that in movie YA coming of age, the protagonists are most of the time male, whereas in book YA coming of age, the protagonists are most of the time female.
yeah,
And so the reason for that is the idea is that for book YA coming of age, why you often or most of the time have female protagonists, is that girls read more than boys. So again, it comes down to marketability. And when it comes to movie YA coming of age, they're usually boys because very often you have most of the time male creator driving it because they want to say something about their own childhood.
right. Right. Yeah, that's another thing. We didn't have any straight ahead coming of age scripts in this year's Get Rep Now, although there were a couple of dramas that had those elements. But coming of age spec scripts are really tough. When they do get made in Hollywood, like Tanya said, they're either IP driven or they're auteur driven. You get some creator who wants to tell the story about his childhood and his experience, and we have to suffer through that 2 hour movie. Nobody cares about that shit. Sorry. I mean, I know it was important to you, but the movie going public, not so much. So don't do that as a spec strip. But one other thing I wanted to note about this year's Get Rep Now field, and this is true every year as well, is we're starting to get some of the responses from the managers, and so some passes have come in. We're still out to quite a few. Quite a few are still reading, but from the passes that come in, we've seen there's been several passes of on very good scripts. Now, this is not, going to really surprise anybody that, different managers have different tastes, of course. And so what we or our team read and respond to as a good piece of material that we think somebody should pay attention to, well, the manager might have other ideas about that. That's always the case. We've seen year after year where we've had great scripts and some that even could be considered more marketable that don't get picked up, that don't get signed. It just happens. It just sort of emphasizes that this is a numbers game. It could have to do with, that person's particular tastes, of course. It could have to do with, well, I happen to know a project like this recently got set up, so I have no real path forward with this. Or maybe the manager developed something like this a couple of years ago, took a shot at it, didn't go anywhere. Or maybe they have another client with a project similar to this. There's a million different reasons why somebody might pass that doesn't necessarily have to do with the quality of the writing, the quality of the voice, or the story being told. It's just that's why it's such a numbers game and why you just have to keep trying. Whether or not you have success with Get Rep Now, or just, any way that you try to get your material out there, it doesn't necessarily mean that you suck or you're doing something incorrectly. It may mean that, but it could also simply mean that for whatever reason, this person didn't find the path forward with this particular material.
So keep on keeping on.
Keep on keeping on. That's it, folks. Thanks for watching. Please, if you like this video, subscribe, send it to a friend, and hit that like button and hit the notification bell. So, we try to drop 2 brand new videos a week, sometimes more. And, we try to share all of what we consider to be knowledge with you guys. So, please share the love. Thanks for watching. And if anybody has any questions, what should they do, Tanya?
Email us at info@coverageinc.com.
Thanks for watching.